October 30th. It's my reflection for this week. So we did the marriage and counseling. So I feel like I really blew up the marriage counseling session that I volunteered to go. Um, let's just say marriage counseling track is not something I am interested in, to put it lightly. And one of the thing in the book and the presentation seems to be, let's find a way to work around infidelity. But aren't human beings? I mean, there are evidence that shows human beings are not exactly pre-wired for monogamous relationships. So I'm doing a review on our guest speaker, and basically, he gave some good advice on how to deal with boys mostly, and students as a fresh uh, fresh meat, fresh new counselor. So some of them are interesting, like know your balance, know your limit. But I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about the article. The problem with boys, ... is actually a problem with men. And it's actually made a good point. I think this article is in the Esquire. Things I do like about articles, let me see what I wrote. America, so he basically, Tom, or the guy who wrote this, said America have a man's problem. Boy need to step up, and they need role models to do that, and they need systematic exclusion almost. So they need different ways to help them learn because they're falling behind in school and college, and there needs to be different way to approach boys' learning style. So that was a really important point. And here's my kind of diagram of what he thinks. Basically, there are men's problem and there are women's problem. But I think the reality is more like the second. There are like definitely overlap, but it seems like the third, which is a lot more confusing. Basically, the whole article, see some point, divide men and women's problem, and it's a fixation on this girl and boy dichotomy, this binary, which means boys act a certain way and girls act a certain way that are fitting to their role, gender role. So it's not about men or women, it's a gender problem. That means you gotta define what is gender and what are roles assigned to them. And it's not a fixed binary, just boy and girls. It's not a universal issue where all men has this problem. I feel like the issue is conflated with gender and on an institutional level, and it's just very simplistic and relative. It's like relative. It's like relative, to say it's all universal. So if we solve the man problem, we solve everything, which is ignoring other factors like race, sex, social economic class, and other huge factors that have tremendous impact on the educational attainment of just anybody, a student, not just men or women. So it's funny to say that America has a man problem. America has a problem with coming out or getting away and moving away from the binary gender role or gender separation of men and women. Should there be more than two gender or two sex? Are we talking about the same thing? Is sex gender? According to the most recent discussion, sex has been all along gender. So sex is not biological. Sex is always contaminated with gender. Like the way we categorize two set of sex is very interesting. When there are a number of research in the scientific community who would attest to that by suggesting, should there be more than two gender? Why not three? There are X. Let's see how many combination XX, XY, 0 OY, XXX, Superwoman, XXXX. So some people say 17, some 32. So it's all arbitrary how we categorize it. Yes, there is, in the physical world, there are definitely differences. But how we chose, and we still see it this way as a binary of men and women, arbitrary category, and still assign gender roles to them, is problematic. And that's one thing I have with this problem is like the undertone of it is like this thing against reverse sexism. We are focusing the right amount, let's just say, on women's issue and not enough on boys. Which is, I'm not saying we should totally ignore boys' issue, but I'm saying we should see it as a gender issue, and it's a gender that's conflated or that's connected with other issues that must be attacked simultaneously and not just single out men. Even though it seems like privileging men, like especially like folks like men are bored by reading lists of women authors dominated by women authors. Try going to public high school. The main discourse of high school currently still very much, most of the writers or the main literature, the canon, and what is the correct way to learn history is still very ethnocentric and like male centric. It's still very, I don't see a lot of women authors, but from like my sister's textbook, it seems to change a lot. They do include people of color and different reading, but how is that analyzed and how is that talked about in class? How is that unpacked?